All right, so today we're going deep on a story that I think really captured everyone's attention a couple years ago, the disappearance and death of Gabby Petito.
Yeah, definitely a case that, kind of took over the news cycle and social media for quite a while.
Oh, for sure. And there's so much to unpack with this one.
Yeah.
But I think our goal today should be to, try to cut through the noise. There's so much speculation and theories and opinions out there, I think, for this deep dive. Let's stick to the facts and, really get down to the core timeline and the key events.
Yeah, I think that's a great approach. And luckily, we have a really solid resource to work with the Wikipedia article on the, killing of Gabby Petito. It's really comprehensive, super detailed, so we can pull, the essential information from there.
Perfect.
Yeah.
So let's do that. Let's give everyone, the clearest possible picture of what happened to Gabby.
Yeah, sounds good.
So to kind of set the stage, this whole story starts back in July of 2021. Gabby Petito, she was 22 at the time, and her fiancé, Brian Laundrie, they set out on this, cross-country van life trip. The whole, hashtag van life aesthetic was super popular then.
Oh, yeah, totally. Everyone and their dog, it seemed, was trying to, renovate a van and hit the road.
Right, exactly. And Gabby, she was really into it. If you look at her online presence, her social media, she was all about, art and yoga and, healthy eating. She was vegan. And she was documenting their whole trip on YouTube and Instagram.
Yeah, and that documentation, it becomes a really important piece of the puzzle later on. But before we even get to Gabby's disappearance, there's this incident that happens in Moab, Utah on August 12th that's kind of a red flag.
Yeah, this is where things start to get a little messy. So there's a 911 call that comes in reporting a fight between a couple outside of a community cooperative place. And there were witnesses who said they saw a man slapping a woman. Yeah, and another witness said they saw a really heated argument where Gabby was punching Brian's arm and saying stuff like, "Why do you have to be so mean?"
Oh, that's so intense.
It is.
Yeah.
And this all leads to a traffic stop by the police near Arches National Park. And the body cam footage from this stop, it's really hard to watch, but it's also a really crucial piece of evidence. You can see Gabby, she's super distraught, she's crying, and she's talking about having really bad OCD and feeling this pressure to keep up with her blog. She'd quit her job to go on this trip, and she was trying to make it as a blogger.
Yeah, I can imagine that would be a lot of pressure, to be constantly creating content and putting yourself out there like that.
Totally. And it seems like that was part of the argument that they were having. Brian was apparently doubting her ability to be successful as a blogger.
Oh, wow. So adding to her stress?
Yeah, it's just a really complicated situation. But anyway, the police, they're trying to figure out, what happened. And at first, Gabby kind of downplays the physical violence. But then the officer points out that she has marks on her arm and face. And she admits that Brian grabbed her face and told her to shut up and that it hurt.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah. And Brian, he gives his side of the story and says he was just trying to create some space because she was getting agitated and trying to take the car keys. He even says she hit him with her phone.
So both of them are claiming to be the victim in a way.
Right. And it's up to the police to sort it out, which is, a really tough job in these kinds of situations.
Yeah.
Because how do you really know what happened?
Yeah, for sure. And in this case, the officers, they decided to classify the incident as a mental health crisis rather than domestic violence. And that's a really important distinction because if they had classified it as domestic violence, they probably would have had to arrest Brian.
Yeah, that's a good point. So in the end, they separate them for the night. Brian goes to a motel and Gabby stays in the van and no charges are filed.
Which is pretty crazy considering what we know now, right?
It is. And it's something that came back to haunt the Moab Police Department later on, because there was a huge internal investigation into how they handled this whole thing.
Yeah.
And the police chief actually ended up taking a leave of absence during the review.
Wow, yeah, this case really brought to light the challenges of dealing with these kinds of situations, domestic disputes can be so complex and there's so much at stake.
For sure. And unfortunately, this is just the beginning of the story. So after the incident in Moab, we have a few more documented sightings and activities from Gabby and Brian.
Okay, so what happens next?
So on August 17th, Brian flies to Florida from Salt Lake City, leaving Gabby in Utah.
Yeah.
And according to hotel staff, she stayed at a Fairfield Inn near the airport and then checked out on August 24th. Later on, the Laundrie family lawyer said that Brian went to Florida to get some stuff and close out a storage unit to save money because they were thinking about extending their trip.
Oh, okay, so he wasn't just taking off and leaving her.
Right, exactly. And he did go back to Utah on August 23rd.
Okay, got it.
Then around August 25th, Gabby's mom says that was the last time she talked to her. And Gabby mentioned that they were heading towards Grand Teton and Yellowstone National Parks.
Okay, so like still on track with their trip.
Yep. And on that same day, August 25th, Gabby makes her last post on Instagram. It's a picture of her in front of a butterfly mural in Ogden, Utah.
Oh, I remember seeing that photo. It was all over the news later.
Yeah, it's really eerie to look at it now, knowing what happened.
Mm-hmm.
And then, tragically, the last confirmed sighting of Gabby alive is from August 27th.
Oh, wow. So like just a couple days later?
Yeah, there's surveillance footage of her and Brian at a Whole Foods in Jackson, Wyoming.
Okay.
They get there around 2:11 p.m., go into the store, and leave about 15 minutes later.
Mm.
And then they drive north towards the Bridger-Teton National Forest where they were planning on camping.
Okay, so that's the last time anyone sees her, like for sure.
Pretty much.
Mm-hmm.
And from here on out, we're relying on eyewitness accounts and, piecing together the timeline based on that.
Right, because Brian's not talking at this point.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So one of the key eyewitnesses is a woman who saw Gabby and Brian at a restaurant in Jackson Hole on August 27th. It was sometime between 1 and 2 p.m., and she said that Brian was being really aggressive, like arguing with the staff about something to do with money.
Ugh, that's not good.
I know. And she also saw Gabby go back to the restaurant later, looking super upset and apologizing for Brian's behavior.
Oh, wow. So like really embarrassing and uncomfortable for her.
Yeah, it sounds like it. And then there's another really important eyewitness who contacted the FBI. This woman said she saw a white van and a man acting weird near the Spread Creek dispersed camping area on like August 26th, 27th, and maybe even the 28th.
Wait, so like the area where they were supposed to be camping?
Exactly. And she actually posted about it on TikTok. And an FBI agent told her that her tip was what led them to the location where they eventually found Gabby's remains.
Wow, that's incredible. Like the power of social media and, people paying attention.
It's pretty amazing.
Oh.
And then there are two other people who say they gave Brian a ride while he was hitchhiking alone on August 29th.
Okay, so he's like by himself now.
Yeah, and these rides were near Coulter Bay Village and Jackson Lake Dam. And both of these people said that he was acting really strange. Like one of them said he was freaking out when he realized they were going towards Jackson Hole instead of Jackson, Wyoming. And he offered them like a ton of money for the ride, even though it wasn't that far.
Huh, that's so weird. Like why was he so desperate to get to Jackson?
Right. And the other person who picked him up said he was really antsy to get out near the Spread Creek dispersed camping area, like specifically that spot.
Oh, wow. So like that's really suspicious.
It is. And then to make matters even worse, there are these text messages that were sent from Gabby's phone that just seem really off.
What do you mean?
So on August 27th, a text goes out to her mom that says, "Can you help Stan? I just keep getting his voicemails and missed calls."
Stan.
Yeah, Stan was her grandfather. But her mom said she never called him Stan, like it was always Grandpa. So that was weird. And then the last message that was sent from her phone was on August 30th, and it just said, "No service in Yosemite."
But they weren't in Yosemite, right?
Right, exactly. So her mom was like, there's no way Gabby sent that.
Yeah, that's really fishy. Like, it seems like someone else was using her phone.
Yeah, and on August 29th, Brian had a phone call with his mom. And reportedly, his whole demeanor changed towards the end of the conversation.
Mm.
And then after that, he talked to his dad and told him Gabby's gone and that he might need a lawyer.
Oh, my God.
Yeah, and then on September 1st, Brian shows up back at his parents' house in Northport, Florida. He's driving the van, and he's all alone. And then, get this, a few days later, he and his parents go camping together at Fort DeSoto Park.
Wait, so they're going camping while Gabby's still missing?
Yeah, it's super strange.
Yeah.
And that brings us up to September 11th, when Gabby's mom finally files a missing person report.
Okay, so officially the investigation starts now.
Right. And just 4 days later, Brian is named as a person of interest in the case.
Which basically means they think he might have something to do with it, but they don't have enough evidence to charge him yet.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
And at this point, Brian's parents, they hire a lawyer, and they decide to stay silent. They refuse to cooperate with the police or talk to anyone about where Gabby is.
Oh, wow. So they're just clammed up.
Yep. And the police, they put the laundry house under surveillance, and they think they see Brian leaving on September 13th and coming back on September 15th.
Yeah.
But it turns out they actually misidentified him. It was his mom.
Oh, wow. So they messed that up.
Yeah. And the police chief even went on TV and said, "All I'm going to say is we know where Brian Laundrie is at," which obviously wasn't true, and ended up being really hurtful to Gabby's family.
Yeah, I can imagine.
So then on September 17th, Brian's parents report him missing.
Mm-hmm.
They say they haven't seen him since September 13th.
Oh, wow. So now both Gabby and Brian are missing.
Right. And the police is like, oh, crap, we were wrong about that sighting.
Yeah.
So they get a search warrant for the laundry house, and they seize the van and external hard drive. and the family's Ford Mustang.
Okay, so like trying to gather any evidence they can.
Exactly. And then on September 19th, the news that everyone was dreading comes out. Human remains are found at the Spread Creek dispersed camping area in Wyoming, the same place where that woman saw the white van and the guy acting weird.
Oh, no.
And it's confirmed that the remains are Gabby's. And an autopsy shows that she was murdered. She had blunt force trauma to her head and neck, and she was strangled.
Oh, my God. That's so awful.
It's just heartbreaking. And they determined that she was killed about 3 to 4 weeks before they found her body.
So like sometime around when she was last seen.
Exactly. And while all this is going on, the search for Brian is still in full swing. On September 23rd, a federal arrest warrant is issued for him, but not for Gabby's murder. It's for using her debit card without authorization. They say he took out like $1,000 or more between August 30th and September 1st.
Okay, so they're like building a case against him?
Yeah, and the FBI gets DNA samples from his house to help with the investigation.
Right.
And during all this, Brian's sister goes on TV and makes a public plea for him to turn himself in.
Wow, so like even his own family is turning against him at this point.
Yeah, it's crazy. And then on October 7th, Brian's dad, Christopher Laundrie, he actually goes with the investigators to search for his son in this nature reserve in Florida.
Really?
Yeah, they're looking at areas that Brian liked to go to, including this place called Miakahatchee Creek Environmental Park.
Huh. And what happened?
Well, on October 20th, they find Brian's remains in the park. It's in an area that had been underwater recently.
Oh, wow. So like his body was probably like decomposed and stuff?
Yeah, it was skeletal remains.
Yeah.
And they also find some of his belongings.
So like what did they figure out? Did he kill himself?
So the first autopsy was inconclusive. But then on November 23rd, a forensic anthropologist determined that he died from a self-inflicted gunshot wound to the head.
Oh, wow. So he took his own life.
Yeah. And then a few months later, on January 21st, 2022, the FBI comes out with a final update. They say that they found Brian's notebook near his remains.
Yeah.
And in the notebook, he admits to killing Gabby. Yeah. And he also admits to, like, trying to trick people with those text messages to make them think she was still alive.
Wow. So like he was trying to cover his tracks.
Yep. So with that, the FBI officially closes the case. They conclude that Gabby's death was a homicide committed by Brian Laundrie, who then died by suicide.
Okay, but what about his claim that it was like a mercy killing? Like he said she fell and got hurt and he just put her out of her misery.
Right. So in June of 2022, the Laundrie family lawyer releases the full notebook entry. And Brian does say that he killed Gabby as an act of mercy after she supposedly fell and got injured, and that he then decided to kill himself because he couldn't live without her.
That's a pretty convenient story, don't you think?
Yeah, a lot of people think so too. Like forensic experts and people who study these kinds of cases, they've said that Brian's account just doesn't really line up with the evidence. And it seems more like he was just trying to justify his actions, you know?
Yeah, like make himself look better.
Yeah, exactly. So that's basically the whole story in a nutshell. Yeah. But of course, there's so much more to it than just the facts of the case. Like this whole thing became a huge media sensation, and it sparked a lot of conversations about, you know, domestic violence and missing persons and the role of social media in all of this.
Right, like it was everywhere. You couldn't escape it.
It was inescapable.
Huh.
And I think there are a few reasons why it got so much attention. First of all, Brian and his parents refusing to talk. No. That just created this whole air of mystery and suspicion. Like, what are they hiding?
Yeah.
And then you have Gabby's social media presence, which gave people this really personal window into their lives and their relationship.
Yeah, it was like we were all watching their van life adventure unfold in real time, and then suddenly it just stopped. And then you have the body cam footage from the police stop in Moab, which was like really disturbing and made people wonder if the police could have done more to protect Gabby.
Yeah, and then you have all these eyewitnesses coming forward with their stories, and people online are like piecing together clues and creating theories, and it just became this whole phenomenon.
Yeah, it was like a real-life true crime drama unfolding before our eyes.
Exactly. And I think the fact that Gabby and Brian were this young, attractive couple going on this romantic adventure, you know, it just captured people's imaginations and it made the whole thing even more tragic.
Yeah, for sure. And there was also the whole connection to van life culture, which was having this huge moment at the time.
Right. It was like the ultimate van life nightmare.
Yeah, totally. And you can't forget about like our society's obsession with true crime. Like we're just fascinated by these kinds of stories.
We are. And I think it's interesting to think about why that is.
Mm-hmm.
You know, what is it about these dark and disturbing cases that draws us in?
Yeah, that's a good question. Like, is it because we want to understand the darkness in the world? Or is it because we're looking for reassurance that it won't happen to us?
I don't know. It's probably a bit of both, I think.
Yeah.
But anyway, back to the Gabby Petito case. So there was also a lot of speculation at the time about whether her case was connected to the murders of Kylan Schultz and Crystal Turner.
Who were they?
There were a couple who were found shot to death in Moab around the same time that Gabby and Brian were there.
Oh, wow. So like another tragedy in the same area.
Yeah, and people were like, maybe there's a link. Maybe there's a serial killer on the loose. But ultimately, there was never any evidence to support that theory.
Okay, so just a coincidence then.
It seems like it.
Yeah.
But it just adds to the whole, like, unsettling feeling of the case. You know? Like, there's so much we don't know.
Right, and the public involvement in the case was really intense, too. Like, people were doing their own investigations online, sharing tips and theories, and even organizing protests outside the laundry house.
Yeah, it was crazy. And Gabby's parents started the Gabby Petito Foundation to help support the search for other missing persons. And it's actually kind of a silver lining to this whole tragedy that the attention on Gabby's case led to the discovery of 5 other missing people.
Oh, wow. That's amazing.
Yeah, it's bittersweet. But the whole case also brought up a lot of important discussions about missing white woman syndrome.
Right, like the idea that the media pays more attention to missing white women than to people of color.
Exactly. And a lot of people pointed out that Gabby's case got way more coverage than the cases of missing indigenous people in the same area of Wyoming.
Which is like a huge problem, right? Like, it shouldn't matter what race or gender you are. Everyone deserves to be found.
Absolutely. And Gabby's dad, Joseph Petito, he actually came to understand and acknowledge the problem of missing white woman syndrome. And he's become an advocate for greater equity in missing persons cases.
Oh, wow. That's really great.
Yeah, he's using the Gabby Petito Foundation to try to make a difference. And he's also involved in this series called Faces of the Missing, which highlights the stories of missing people from marginalized communities.
That's awesome. Like using his platform for good.
Totally. So the criminal case is closed, but the legal ramifications of Gabby's death are still ongoing.
Oh, right. Like the lawsuits.
Yeah. So Gabby's family won a $3 million wrongful death lawsuit against Brian's estate, but it's unlikely they'll ever see that money.
Yeah, because he's dead and probably didn't have that much money anyway.
Right, and they also sued Brian's parents and their lawyer for emotional distress, saying that they knew about Gabby's death, and they didn't say anything.
Oh, wow. That's intense.
It is. And that lawsuit was settled in 2024, but the details of the settlement weren't made public.
Okay, so we don't know what happened there.
Nope. And then the biggest lawsuit is the one against the Moab Police Department. Gabby's parents are suing them for $50 million for wrongful death. They're saying that the police were negligent in their handling of the domestic dispute back in August of 2021.
Right, like they should have done more to protect Gabby.
Exactly.
Yeah.
They say that one of the officers knew that Brian was a threat to Gabby, but didn't follow the proper procedures. And they also say that the police department didn't follow their own lethality assessment protocol, which is supposed to help them figure out the risk of future violence in domestic situations.
That's pretty damning.
It is. And this lawsuit is still ongoing, although a judge did dismiss it in November 2024.
Oh, really? Why?
Yeah. He said that the Moab Police Department was protected by something called the Governmental Immunity Acts of Utah, which basically shields government entities from certain lawsuits.
Oh, so like they can't be held liable?
Pretty much.
Yeah.
But Gabby's parents are appealing the dismissal. So it's not over yet.
Wow, this case just keeps going and going.
It does. And it's even made its way into popular culture. There was a Lifetime movie called The Gabby Petito Story that came out in 2022.
Oh, yeah, I think I saw that one. It was pretty good.
Yeah, and there's also a Netflix documentary series called American Murder, Gabby Petito, that's supposed to come out in February 2025.
Oh, cool. I'll have to check that out.
So yeah, that's the Gabby Petito story. It's a story that starts with this free-spirited couple setting out on this awesome adventure, and then it just takes this dark and tragic turn.
Yeah, it's really heartbreaking.
It is, and it raises so many questions about, love and relationships and violence and the dangers of social media. And it also makes you think about how we as a society respond to these kinds of tragedies. Why are we so fascinated by true crime? Why do some cases get so much attention while others are forgotten?
Yeah, that's something I think we all need to grapple with. Like, what does it say about us that we're so drawn to these stories?
Exactly. And what responsibility do we have to make sure that all victims get the attention and justice they deserve? There's a lot to think about.
It is, and I think that's a good place to leave it for today. Thanks for listening, everyone.
Thanks for joining us. We'll see you next time.